My name is Sister Christine Marie Baltas, and I entered the Missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart in 1959.
Okay. And I know you've been an educator. I know you've had lots of different kinds of jobs. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Okay. I'm an educator. I'm a teacher. Once a teacher, always a teacher. And I taught on the elementary level and on the high school level. And then I was an administrator on the, first I was at Cabrini University as the Dean of Students for 4 years, and then I was principal of an elementary school in West Philadelphia for 19 years.
But you also had some time in Brooklyn at a pretty special school.
Oh yes, my time in Brooklyn was wonderful. I was there when I was a postulant. A postulant is when you first enter, and I taught the 4th grade in Brooklyn, and I had lots of memorable experiences there. I had always heard Brooklyn was such a great place, and I found that out when I went there. Then I went back to Brooklyn after I'd been in the novitiate. I'd been to Philadelphia for 3 years in an elementary school. Then I returned to Brooklyn, and that was, I always said if any MSC who was an educator didn't get to Brooklyn, they really missed something very special. The people were wonderful. They had a very special place in their hearts for the sisters. They couldn't do enough for us. They were wonderful. Our classes were big. The most challenging I think I had was when I had 60 8th graders all day long, no special teachers, but I think they were just a very special bunch of kids. And there was another 8th grade class, and they also had 60 students. And I think the most memorable time that I can think of was when the World's Fair came to New York. And the two of us, 2 sisters, took 120 kids to the World's Fair for the day. No other chaperones. We had to take the subway, we had to change trains. But you know what? We didn't lose anybody. And we had a terrific day. We had a wonderful time. But the whole time there was very, very special. Yeah, I loved my time in Brooklyn.
How did you first meet the sisters, and what made you decide to enter the Institute?
I went to Mother Cabrini High School in New York, and that's how I got to know them, got to meet them. And I was impressed by their kindness, by their humanness. But for many years, I pushed the idea of religious vocation away. I didn't want to deal with that. Even though it had started when I was a little girl in grammar school, but every little girl went through that, I think, in those days. You got a favorite sister, and you said, oh, I want to be like her. But that passed when I discovered that there were boys in the world. Then back in high school, again, the sisters were very kind, and they were characters. They were all so different from one another, as we all are today. And I remember when I was 17, I celebrated my birthday, and one of the sisters who knew me quite well said, how old are you? And I told her I was 17. And she said, oh, you're getting old. There was something about her voice and the way she said it and the way she looked at me. I knew what she was getting at. I just knew it. And after that, I kind of said, okay, Lord, I surrender. But I didn't enter right after graduation, as some other people did at that time. My parents asked me to wait a year, and I did. So I graduated in 58, but I entered in 59.
So we talk about the charism. Can you tell me when you first entered the order what you thought of the charism, and then now?
I don't think I knew what that word meant. Charism, that word never entered my mind. All I knew was I knew Mother Cabrini's story. We learned it when we were in high school, and I was impressed by her desire to serve, to reach out to other people, to reach out to the poor. And I remember thinking, well, I want to be a social worker. I think I was trying to avoid religious vocation, but I still wanted to do good in the world. But as far as the word charism, I didn't know that word even existed. You know, it was a spirit that I guess I picked up the spirit of Mother Cabrini as lived out in the sisters that, I got to know.
And how do you experience the charism today?
Now that I understand it much better, personally, I really do pray every day that anybody that I encounter during the day, that I will be a loving presence, that I will be someone who brings Jesus to them without saying his name, by trying to be kind and trying to just be friendly and reach out. And I think that that's very contagious, because I think that certainly in our institutions, and all of them that I've been in, people who come to know the story, they pick up on that. I can remember one time when I was principal at St. Donato's, we had somebody special come to the school who visited all different schools. And she came and she walked around. I don't even remember what she was there for, but she came back and she said to me, "Sister," she said, there's something different about this place. And at first I didn't know what she was getting at, but it was positive. And I said, I think that's the spirit of Mother Cabrini, because Mother Cabrini started that school, St. Donato's School in Philadelphia. The founding pastor asked her to start a school. But I think that spirit, my experience has been, it's been in any place any of our missions that I've ever been. I think that spirit is there.
As a sister, you live in community. What's it like to live in community for all these years?
Okay. Community can be a very challenging, but also a very enriching experience. I lived in communities that were as large as maybe 22, 23, and I lived in communities that were mid-sized, 10, 12, 6. I lived alone, and now I live in a community of 2. So what's enriching about it is you get to experience people of different cultures. I remember living, when I was in the novitiate, we had a sister from the Philippines, we had one from England, we had one from Nicaragua, and those were the days before we had all of the kind of thing that we hear about so much today, about inclusivity and diversity. We had the diversity, and we lived with diverse people, but I don't think personally it ever occurred to me the differences were not difficult. I'm not saying that that's always true, but was my experience then. But community, people bring their gifts and talents, and it's beautiful to see how each one's gifts and talents can contribute to the beauty and the joy of the community.
So I want to ask you again the question about what touched your heart. It sounds like Brooklyn or St. Donato's touched your heart in some way.
Brooklyn the people had a special place in their hearts for Brooklyn, and I think their hearts became part of our hearts. I can remember long walks coming home from school at the end of a long day. Usually there'd be some kids walking with us, but people would be calling out the window, "Hi, sister." Well, no, in those days we were mother. "Hi, mother," or they'd come out of their houses to stop. So sometimes it would take quite a long time to make that 8-block trip from school to the house. But there was a warmth, there was an earthiness, there was nothing put on, nothing fake. People were so real, and I think that brought out the same in us, and made the sisters. I think they had great fondness. I know they did. The sisters, not only were we teaching in school, but there was an elderly sister who did the cooking, Sister Clara. And there was Sister Martina, and they were home all the time. But people, if they needed food, they would go to the downstairs where the kitchen area was and knock on the door, and Sister Clara would give them bags of food. I remember a young man who was, when I was there in Brooklyn, as a postulant, I believe, he was a high school student, And he loved the nuns, and he'd come back, and he'd go into the classes. He was very spirited, and he would talk to the 8th graders, and I don't know what he would say, but everybody knew him. Well, that young man went on to become a priest, Father Michael Salerno, and I had the privilege, the joy and the privilege of going to his ordination, which was held in Brooklyn. And it was right after the time the movie Sister Act came out, and Michael had the songs from Sister Act at his ordination. I thought the bishop might not appreciate it, but he seemed to go with the flow, and it was wonderful. And Michael, Father Michael, went on to, he was a pastor in a parish, I believe it was in Jersey, for many years, but he came full circle, because in his senior years, he was back at the convent, Sacred Heart Convent in Brooklyn. Sacred Heart in Manhattan, where the sisters are, and Michael stayed with them. So he had his own quarters there, and he brought such joy. Sisters enjoyed Michael's presence so much, and he would organize, bingo was the favorite thing, and he would have prizes, and he just made it fun. And Michael passed away a couple of years ago, and I think to this day they really miss him, but he was a product of Brooklyn.
Very nice. So if you think back on your life, and I'm going to go back to something you said earlier, think back on your life as a bearer of the love of Christ in these many years. You said something about students and your hair earlier.
I joke, and because I was principal for 19 years in an elementary school, I say there's a kid's name attached to each gray hair. I say that in jest, of course. Over the years, many wonderful kids, many wonderful families in the elementary level, but also when I was here as Dean of Students. I had a fun 4 years. Doesn't mean that there were not any challenges, there were not any times that were really hard, where I had to make hard decisions that weren't fun and games. But for the most part, I totally enjoyed the students. And they gave me a nickname, Mean Dean Christine. And I could be tough, I guess. I used to joke and say, don't mess with me, I'm tough, I'm from New York. I'm from the Bronx, you don't mess with me. And they would kind of laugh, but you know what? I came to find out that they would get really scared if they were in trouble and they got a message that came from me that said, you are to report to the Office of the Dean of Students within 24 hours of receiving this notice. They really got scared. And I would invite them in, and I'd invite them to sit down across from me at my desk, and I'd look at them and I'd say, so-and-so, talk to me about Friday night. And then the story would come out. For the boys, it was usually poured out, and it was usually pretty accurate. It matched up with what the security report had to say. With the girls, it was a little harder. You had to pull it out of them. But, and a lot of funny things happen. I have memories when I walk on this campus and I see certain statues. It brings back those memories.
It's beautiful. If you had now your elevator speech, your 1 or 2 sentences, what would you say it has meant to you to be part of this institute?
I have been blessed in so many ways. I have been given so many opportunities to meet and interact with different people in different cultures, even within our own country. I was never officially missioned outside of this country, but having gone from, say, New York to Brooklyn to Philadelphia to New Orleans to Burbank, California, back to the East Coast, each place was different in their own way, in their own cultures. It was just so enriching. We used to joke and sing a song that we made up. We parodied the words to the Chevy song, and we'd say, see the world for free as an MSC. And it was true that, the experience of going far away places, while it was always hard to pull up the little roots you put down, it was always exciting for me. It was always an adventure. And I loved every minute of it. And then, in the last several years here at Cabrini University, I was given the opportunity to go to places I never would have thought of going to, on mission trips with students, and got to go to many different countries and to be of service and to experience life in those places and to see how wonderful the people were. Despite the poverty that they lived in, I just felt such a warmth and a welcome. It was truly a gift of great learning experience.
Is there anything else you want to tell us? You want to tell us anything about your ministry now?
Well, since I'm back at Cabrini University, I've been helping in campus ministry. And there I'm trying to be available for whatever comes my way, whether it's a student who wants to talk, whether it's faculty or staff that wants to share something, or if I'm asked to do some kind of a presentation, whether it's in a classroom or at an event. I try to always respond and do what's asked of me, and I find great joy in that. Sometimes it's challenging. Oh my goodness, what am I going to say? And I have to write something down and prepare for it. But I pray to the Holy Spirit, and the inspiration usually comes. And so I try to be of service in whatever way I can. To be part of this organization means being part of a big family. And the welcome mat is always there. No matter where I would travel and go to one of our houses, it's going home, it's going to family. And I try to tell students, and I have told not only students but other people as well, if you go to such and such a place, just tell them that you're connected with, say, Cabrini University, and you will be welcomed like family. And people have done it, and they've said, it's true, it really works. So for me, I never lost my own touch with my own family, but I've become a part of a much bigger family, and it's wonderful.